Hello.
Hey, is this open mic?
Isn't like you mean there's no time limit or something?
Yeah, is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. All right, so we can both hear each other, which is great. Um, Perfect. All right.
All right. So should I begin now?
Yeah, I mean, oh, probably a good idea.
Okay. All right. So robot tax is a bad idea. That is what the motion is today. So the main idea behind this motion or this topic being discussed is that there are some people who are actually giving some response to robots taking the jobs of human. That's what they claim, and they claim that there should be a robot tax. But it is such a foolish idea on my point of view because it creates more problems to the economy and to the um, even what do you call it, the living standard of people as well. And not just that, it actually goes against the idea of taxation itself. So yeah, so that's why I actually wanted to bring up this topic and to discuss on why robot tax is a foolish idea, and then it's something that should not happen because it has so many consequences that are lined up to the economy, to people itself, and it's just a bad idea. So that's what my baseline is.
Mhm.
So yeah, would you like to add something to this or?
Um, yeah, I mean, I kind of when you put this topic up, I saw it and I was like, I can't not debate this because I actually debated this at nationals a few weeks ago, a few months.
Ooh,
I was
really?
like, yeah, yeah. No, I think where this debate's going to go is exactly where I want it to go, which is actually really good. It means that this is not going to get super messy. But obviously, I think the opposite. I think that while there may be some issues to the economy, I think that the people we should be caring most about are the people who are being replaced by robots. And so I think, without getting too far into this before we get into the substantive stuff, like the kinds of people that it looks like. And so I would like to refrain this debate to um, things like white collar jobs, so things like the manufacturing industry, those kinds of issues, because they're the industry is most likely to utilize robots in place of humans. Obviously, it's going to happen more, but I think mostly they're the types of people that are going to be replaced, and so they're the ones that I would like to focus this debate on, just for the purposes of not talking about everything in one go. But I mean, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so I think that to some extent, the issues that might come up for the economy are outweighed by the issues that will come up to the people being replaced if this tax isn't implemented. But with all that said, let's actually get into some proper stuff. So, I mean, if you want to start, maybe because you're the AF, and I don't know, that's usually how it works for me.
Okay, so the problem with your clarification I have is that you say robots are replacing humans, while I say robots are complementing humans.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's my point on your clarification. I actually think robots are complementing humans, and then it's very important to yeah to actually determine that yes, robots are complementing, or maybe new technology are complementing humans. So firstly, I'll just start with a basic thing about taxation. Like, um, why is the taxation? Why taxation exists is because it's because if you see, the whole idea is to actually give better benefits to people. The whole idea is to actually get revenues and then again use that on people to make their lives better. And yeah, I think that's why taxation is done. Like, do you have a different idea to it?
No, I mean, I agree with that. If I have contentions, I'll bring them up as they come up.
Okay. Uh-huh. All right. So when the idea of taxation is this, if you are putting robot tax, the whole idea or the whole reason behind taxation actually plays back. It goes in a negative way. Now I'll tell you why this happens. Because if in case you are actually implementing robot tax, so since robots are inanimate objects, they can only be taxed in the same way all other property is taxed, by taxing the owners of robots, as I actually told you before as well. So
Mhm.
It's just that the companies that use robots now must pay a higher level of taxes for those robots if we are implementing robot tax.
Mhm.
Now, when this burden comes upon the companies, what they do is that since they have now a higher burden for the prices they have to pay for the taxes they have to pay for the robots, what they do is make the products, whatever they are producing, make the products costlier. And not only this, um, and not only this, the next thing is that since now they have a big burden of this taxation, like there's high chances that they actually decrease the quality of their product as well. Because as I said, it's just the idea that they have more pressure on the finances, so they actually could make the products costlier. And the next thing is that they could actually degrade the quality of the product just to create a balance between the company. So these are the two things that could actually disbenefit the people as a whole. So just a basic idea that well, taxation is actually done to better lives for people. It actually in a way is playing a negative role in not helping people. Like it's actually backlashing that main idea. So that's what my that's what my basic idea here is. But I will actually be talking about um, why is I told you about how it goes back or works behind. And the next thing is that the human employment which was before, and then those human employment which have been actually, as you say, replaced. It doesn't mean that the taxation actually gets escaped. Now it doesn't mean that like when you I think the robot tax, it's an idea that if in case humans are not being employed, there should be someone else who actually should be paying for it as well. So that's the idea. But then the taxation of those humans also cannot be escaped, because if in case they are not being employed here, they might be getting employed there. And the next idea is that in fact robotics actually helps people to learn like better skills, because if you see creativity and all those things cannot be actually implied on robots. So that's why I think it actually promotes or maybe pushes an individual to go into better like better jobs, or maybe jobs that actually requires creativity. And I think it just helps an individual on a different level as well. So
So,
yeah, I think
sorry,
I'll give the mic to you. Yeah.
okay, so before we get too far away from the taxation issue, so I have a couple of responses to that. Firstly, in terms of this higher tax burden being pushed onto the owners and the companies, and that then means that the cost is being passed on to consumers, in the sense that the price of products goes up and the quality of the products comes down. I would say that those two things actually aren't going to happen for a number of reasons. Firstly, because when you implement robots, whether it's in combination with humans or replacing humans, robots are able to do a better job, which means that they're more efficient. They create better products because they have that higher standard. They don't make the same mistakes that humans do, which means that the quality of products actually goes up. It also means that the amount of products that these robots can produce in the same time as humans can also goes up, which means that these companies are getting a bigger revenue, which means that higher tax burden is not going to be an issue for them because they're already earning more to start with, which means I find it really unlikely that cost is going to be passed on to consumers if the companies are earning more from having more increased productivity and increased products being made in the first place. So that's the first one. But also in terms of worse quality, like I said, because companies will be earning more, it means that the quality of products won't go down. It'll actually go up because they have more money to invest in these things and more money and better productivity in terms of their workers, so that they can focus more of that money, that increased revenue that they're getting, on creating better products for consumers. So I think that's incredibly beneficial there. And so then I think that increased revenue in the form of tax, because I don't think it's likely that every single company that employs the use of robots is going to utilize that in conjunction with humans. I think it's very likely that a lot of people will lose their jobs in place of those better skills that the robots can have, and that better productivity, because the amount of productivity that a robot can have compared to a human is so large that there will be people who try to utilize capitalism and try to take away human productivity in the favor of gaining more money through robots. And in those instances, that's where the robot tax is beneficial. But also because if they get taxed at the same rate that they are now, it means that they're earning a huge, substantially more income and paying less, because it means that these robots don't have to get paid things like sick leave and annual leave. I mean, they're inanimate, so they don't need those material things. They don't need they are more efficient. They don't have to get paid individually, which means that there's no money lost there, and it also means that and they need less maintenance as well. So the company is paying less and saving significantly more. And at the point in which there will be companies who, or at the point in which those increased tax, that increased revenue comes, then they should be taxed at a higher point than they normally would, should they only be employing humans, given that they are earning more, and then tax is obviously sliding. The more you earn, the more tax you pay. But also, in the case where there will be people who get let off, that tax and that extra revenue should be helped benefit them, because and so I'll go back to you to talk back about humans, because that's where we were going. But yeah, that was what I had to say about tax.
Okay. So in terms of, as you said, that when there's robots, like there's more efficiency, and that it just actually helps the companies. So that's actually my point as well. So now the improvements in efficiency resulting from investments in automation, which is robots, would actually lead to greater profitability. And now when you see, if you are putting higher taxes on those profits, in any case, taxing efficiency is counterproductive, So that's actually my point. So you are actually taxing efficiency, and then that's counterproductive. And the idea that, when you say that it actually, that robots are capable enough to produce more, or like they have high productivity, yes, that's also my point. Now, when in case like those kind of robots have high productivity, now if in case you are taxing those robots, there are less chances that people are actually going to make use of it. So not just actually this idea, I had another one too. So the idea is that if in case you're discouraging the use of robots, if in case you are actually taxing them, so the productivity you are actually ensuring that would come from a robot is actually not going to happen, because you're actually discouraging the use of robot in itself by actually taxing them. So yeah, I guess that's my point.
I wouldn't quite say that having that higher tax on robots disincentivizes companies to do that, because that profit margin still exists, and so even though that tax is there, the companies are still going to be making money from having the use of robots there. So I don't think it's fair to say that companies are disincentivized from doing that just because they have to pay extra from tax, especially when and so I'm gonna be holding on to this idea of companies letting off people, because like it's gonna happen, especially if they will be laying off their workers in place of robots. Like that profit that profit margin, increased profit margin, will always exist. Therefore, the use of robots will always be attractive to companies. It's just and so I obviously support having robots in the industries. I just think that if this comes at a cost to people, then it should be taxed, but also that higher income as well. And so I actually just lost my train of thought. So like, yeah.
No, that's right.
And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly where else. I'm just going to pass it back to you, and we'll see where we go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I would actually like you to answer one question maybe later when you are actually talking about why do you think like it's so much important to have it. I mean, like, why do you think it is creating so much benefit, or maybe like, why it's so much important? I mean, because I would actually like to know that answer, because because it just seems like it's not important, to me, which I would actually expect an explanation from you.
Okay.
So the next thing is that, oh, like there's going to be, when you say like human beings are actually being replaced, and like it's going to make no difference at all if you see, like, so I don't actually, that's why that is the main reason why I don't understand like why taxing it is important, because there's going to be no difference at all, because robots actually took, I mean, if you see, like, I don't know, wait, just a second, even I'm losing my track. It's just too much of thoughts coming up together, so I'm like,
Yeah, I feel you.
oh, okay.
Okay, well, actually, while you get your thoughts together, I'm going to answer that question.
Okay.
The reason why I think it's really important, and the reason why I think it creates benefits, because the types of people that will be losing their jobs, or that will be affected by having less work or by losing their jobs, are probably the types of people that have been working in a particular industry for their whole life. They're likely to be generally older, so I don't know, rough age, like 40 plus. They've been working in that industry for as long as they have been able to work, which means that they have a very specific skill set. They have very little experience outside of that one industry that they've been in, and they're probably very well developed in the life that they have. So they probably have a mortgage, have debt, bills to pay, families to feed, etc. Those kinds of things. At the point in which these workers are being replaced, they're not being made redundant. They're actually losing their jobs, which means that the payouts that they get from working in those companies are significantly less than it would be should the company just, implode and not exist anymore. And so at that point, I think it's beneficial to those specific people to have this tax, because what would happen is the government taxes the companies for having the robots, and then the revenue that comes from that tax is then passed on to the workers who would be otherwise displaced. And so what that means is it means that they're able to look after themselves, look after their family until they're able to get another job, because at that point it's probably hard to get another job. It means that if they want to go into specific education programs to learn new skills to get another job, it means that the government can, at the very least, offset some of the cost of that, if not pay it all entirely. It means so there's a benefit to people there, and I think it's important there as well. And I also think that at the point in which these people have been working for a particular company for so long, that they probably deserve to be rewarded in some kind, not just lose their job because robots are more efficient than they can ever be, and then get kicked to the curb and told to find a new job. And so I think at that point we have an obligation to be looking after them in some way, shape, or form. And so that's what this taxing of robots does. It creates it incentivizes companies to employ the use of robots, but it also means that the increased revenue that these companies would otherwise be getting is also passed on to the workers who actually built that company up, but also would otherwise not necessarily be able to be financially viable in the real world if they otherwise wouldn't have access to those funds, because that's what's likely to happen. And so I think under the age of 40, probably don't really care too much about them. Like, it's a lot easier for someone who's 25 and working in hard labor to find another job or get retrained than it is for someone who's 50 and been working for the last 30 years. And so I think at that point, those people need to have some form of benefit. And I think that the robot tax is most beneficial for those individuals. And that's why I think it's important to them specifically. And so that's like the main reason that I am in favor of the robot tax.
Okay. I have an answer to that. I have an answer to that as well.
Oh, cool.
So what has happened is that for centuries, like, humans actually have worried that when a task is made more efficient by technology, that they'll have nothing to do. But like, every time new jobs are created, maybe there were cases where people actually lost their jobs to like robots, to mechanical plows or mechanical looms. We have actually witnessed how lives have become easier and much more productive. Now, this helps humans to be at the place they are needed, where robots might not be preferred to use. So I think where new jobs, when human creativity can play the most efficiently and effectively. So something new has always come up for humans, although it is often scary because we can never predict what next job will be. But I think it actually puts humans into the right place, and then actually it develops it pushes like people to actually go or seek through the unmet areas and then actually work there. So I just think that it just creates a better a better prospect for any individual in terms of creativity, in terms of effectiveness, and not just this. I have more things to say on this one as well. So if you see, so robots can actually boost the gross domestic product growth by 10%, which is really good, and labor productivity growth by over 15%. Like, okay, so if you really believe that, like, this time there will be a proportion of people who will not have a new job to work in, then your answer is actually not on the tax side, but you are on the payment side, that more people will be unemployed. So under a scenario of mass unemployment due to technology, a logical answer is a universal basic income. And to fund that, perhaps start with removing existing inefficiencies and complexities in the tax system before implementing a whole new one, which you were suggesting. So my idea would be, yeah, like, as I said, when you are worried about the mass unemployment, then the solution to your answer to your question is not on the tax side; it's on the payment side. So you need a logical answer, which is the universal basic income, and then to fund that, as I said, you need to remove the existing inefficiencies and complexities in the tax system before actually implementing one more, which you are suggesting as a robot tax. So, whew, that's my answer.
Yeah, look, fortunately I also have an answer for that, which is
Okay.
yeah, okay. So in terms of the mass unemployment rates and how that's going to be fixed, and so you said that mentioned universal basic income, and the best way to fund that is by reducing the inefficient tax things that already happen in whatever country. I think that while that sounds appealing, that's actually not going to work. And so the reason why I think that that's not going to work, but also not incredibly specific to this particular debate, is because that universal basic income is applicable to everyone, which means that everyone gets that. But also at the point, and so what that means is that at the point in which you have that universal basic income for everybody, it means that each person actually gets less from that, which means that the people who are losing their jobs and are no longer employed from the use of technology, it means that they actually are able to get less. Now, the reason why I would use something like the robot tax to fund the things that would come as a benefit to people losing their jobs, so things like better education programs, or potentially subsidizing their college fees, or I don't know, whatever education programs are in other countries. I don't really know much, but whatever. The reason why I would say that a robot tax is good for that is because it's specifically applicable to the companies that are utilizing robots. Like, obviously, I think we can both agree that these companies are going to have substantially large increases in revenue, and so that offset, or also at the point in which they are earning a significantly larger amount of money, it means that they probably can be taxed that little bit more, and it's not going to affect them too much. It's not like we're going to be taxing these people like, I don't know, 50% of their new income or something. Just that little bit extra means from every single company that does it, that can then be redistributed to only the people that have lost their jobs from companies that have fired them because they would prefer the use of technology. And so I think that's far better than looking at the other economics that affect everybody, because this is only specific to a very specific group of people in a population. And so it means that these people are actually able to get more, but it's also more than just a basic income. The government or these people can then decide how they spend it. So it looks like being able to get that greater creativity because they actually can think about what job they want to go into next, rather than having to think about what they're going to, I don't know, feed their family for the next month. It means that they can get that better education to get into better jobs. And so I think while universal basic income is a good idea, I don't think that it would work in theory in specifically to these people. And I'm running out of things to say, so let's just pass it back. Yeah.
Okay. So okay, I can hear myself back. Hello?
I haven't heard any echoing or whatever, so maybe it's.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
I'm good now. I'm good now.
Awesome, perfect.
Okay. I'm just losing my track of thoughts. It's just so many things together. Okay. So my main idea on this debate is actually, I mean, throughout this, is that not to actually debate whether universal basic income is a better idea than like taxation, but yeah, it's just an idea that actually I presented because you, as I said, you are more on the mass unemployment side, or maybe the payment side than the taxation side. That was my idea. Okay. So when you are actually taxing robots and then funding those people to sustain, because they don't have any more jobs. And oh yeah, so this idea actually is not good enough, because you are actually sustaining them temporarily. And I think there should be, I don't know if this point would actually work, but it's just an idea that taxing robots is actually, you are actually providing those funds to retrain work, like to actually support them in when they don't have jobs. But taxing robots will actually um okay, I just lost my thought. Okay, I just lost my thought. Oh yeah, you could continue with anything.
I
Oh,
mean,
I just
kind
got
of
messed up.
been addressing everything I want to address so far, but I think my main points, like I had the two prongs to this. Firstly, how this affects workers, and so we've been talking about that, and also how
Mhm.
this affects companies, which we've also been talking about. But yeah, and so I think what it comes down to for me, and the first and principal reason as to why I think that a robot tax is good, is because firstly, the company's going to be earning significantly more, which means that I feel like they should probably be paying more tax in the first place, because that's what happens. The more you earn, the more you pay tax. But also, it just, if this comes at a detriment to any particular person, then we should be looking after those people, because as much as I support economic development, technological development, and the furthering of the economy through that technological innovation, I think that if that comes at a detriment to people, then we should be looking at that and looking at ways that we can utilize that innovation to also help the people that are being harmed. And so, if that comes to me in the form of a robot tax, which looks like being able to support those people who are being left behind as a result of this technological innovation. And so that's kind of my main thing. Like I said, I've kind of gone through most of my actual substantive points, so I'm kind of hoping that you have other things that I can just like respond to. But yeah, so that's probably like the main reason why I oppose not having a robot tax there. Um, I don't know. Hopefully, you have more to say.
Okay. All right. Uh, so my I'll just go through a few things. Okay. So there is an evidence, or maybe there's an idea that many actually companies or industries are actually struggling to improve productivity. So what I have as an idea is that if in case you are taxing robots, you are in a way discouraging the use of robots, you're discouraging innovation. And in such an environment that industries are actually struggling to improve productivity, when yeah, as I said, there's an environment where actually industries are struggling, and that you are discouraging innovation. And I think, yeah, it creates a big impact on the economy of the country as a whole, because yeah, because automation technologies are actually a key enabler to better productivity, to better manufacturing. And in a way, if in case you're taxing robots, you're actually discouraging the use of it. And yep, that's what my idea is here.
Right.
I just go one on one, because if I put so much, it's just like too much.
No, that's very fair. So I think in terms of whether or not companies will be incentivized to do this or not, I don't think that companies will be disincentivized, purely because they obviously recognize the benefits of having robots, that increase productivity, that more efficiency, and the quality and amount of products that can be produced in a small time is far greater. And so I think that for companies, the benefits outweigh the harms. So even though they obviously know that they're going to be taxed at a higher rate, they also understand the benefits that would come uh, should they employ the use of robots and technological innovations. And so I don't think it's fair to say, or I think it's somewhat fair to say that some companies might be discouraged. And so but I also think that the vast majority of people who would be looking at utilizing technology would look more at the benefits of the harms, because what are those benefits and harms? Firstly, the benefit is greater productivity, more efficiency, more products being produced, less money that has to be spent on the well-being of their workers, because their workers are inanimate objects. They don't have to be paid, which means that things like income that would normally get paid to workers is retained. It means that there is greater more income coming to the companies because they have more products, but also more income coming into the companies because their products are also better, which means that they sell more. And so I think that they are very attractive to companies. Whereas when you look at the harms of having a robot tax is it means that, instead of earning an extra $10 million per year, they might only be earning 9,900,000 or whatever that tax happens to be. It's not like they're going to be significantly missing out on income. Obviously, those figures are just like very random. But the point is that the harms that would come as having this robot tax to companies is significantly smaller than the benefits that would happen, because at the end of the day, these companies would still be earning significantly more than they otherwise would, and so that cost is actually just going to be a very small thorn in their side. So I don't think it's I don't think companies, or the majority of companies, are going to be discouraged from utilizing technology when those benefits are very clear to them and the harms aren't particularly hugely outweighing of those benefits. And so that's what I have to say back to that. So yeah, cool.
Okay. All right. Just give me a second to process all this. Okay. So is I said like the idea of taxing efficiency is counterproductive. The idea of taxing efficiency is counterproductive, because I think what they do is that I'll just actually I'll just talk from the very beginning. So one of the main reasons business owners, or maybe like any companies, are actually like putting robots is to increase productivity and actually increase their profits. But and is machinery and equipment actually taken more work of humans, and the output actually increases. So it just either way, it's the profitability that business owners are after. But now the operating costs matter a lot when figuring out if a capital investment is actually going to make economic sense. If the cost of employing more capital is higher than the cost of employing more humans, then it does not necessarily pay to invest in said capital. If you say, so what I mean by this is that if in case they are making like if in case the cost of employing more capital, which is actually the idea of robots, is actually higher than the cost of employing more humans, then it is not necessarily like making profit. I mean, it might do, but the associated output is actually just compensating the additional operating cost they have for robots. So yeah, that's my idea. Like when you say yes, they have higher efficiency, even if they do, they're actually using that now again to compensate the additional operating cost they are facing while they are actually using robots. So it just goes nowhere. As I said, I still actually do not get the main core idea on why taxing is just so important. The one idea you present is that now that actually could be given to people, and then be given to people temporarily, which is not a good solution, which is not actually a good solution, because now they are not again ensured that they will be getting jobs again, maybe within certain time limit. So it's not actually helping the people as well. It is just actually sustaining, or which is it's just a not good foundation, like, because you're not actually ensuring them a job, you're just sustaining them on your on the basis of your finances, on the strength of the foundation, like financial condition. And it's just helping nowhere, even to the people. They're just helping nowhere. And as I said, like, I still do not understand about this one. And so I think the call for robot tax is just foolish. And your
Cool.
point in this?
Yeah, cool. So I have a couple of responses to that.
Okay.
Firstly, whether or not the cost of investing in that capital is greater or less than more humans, I would say that the cost is actually less for a number of reasons. Firstly, because it means that they don't have to pay these robots wages, which means they don't have to spend a couple of $1,000s every day to pay the wages to the robots because the robots don't need that material wealth, as opposed to humans. So there's a couple of $1,000s each day that the companies have already made. It means that companies don't also have to pay things like annual leave, which means that they don't have to go for significant periods of time where they have less workers than they otherwise would. So there's a second cost that would be offset by the advancement of robots, which means more money that is eventually saved because it means that they're actually not paying annual leave. Sick leave, robots don't get sick. They actually just don't get sick at all, which means that they're not going to call up on one day and say that I can't come into work because that's not what's happened. Obviously, in some instances, there will be maintenance costs for the robots, but it's going to be far less than the cost that the company would lose from having to pay sick leave whilst also losing that money while having less productivity for that time that person is sick. So there's a third cost or a third amount of money that would also be offset by having robots because it means that money is not being paid to those workers. And so I think that compensation comes from having those robots because it means that companies are actually paying less to the workers. And so there's a significantly large amount of money that the companies are saving without even having that increased productivity, even if the robots work at exactly the same pace that and quality that the humans would work. It means that they're still saving a significantly large amount of money per day, and then that's obviously translated into per week, per month, per year, etc. But that's assuming that the robots only translate or only work at that same productivity level as humans, which is obviously factually incorrect. Robots are going to be more efficient than humans. They can do things faster. They can do things more efficiently, and so those kinds of things. So that's more important there. But in terms of the tax and the reasoning why I support tax being that this cost is passed on to the people who would lose their jobs and whether or not this guarantees them a job, it doesn't need to guarantee them a job. What it needs to do is it needs to support these people who would otherwise not have a job when they lose it and are then unable to do the things that they've been doing for the last 30 years. It means that if they lose their job, they can't pay their mortgage. It means that they can't pay bills. They can't feed their family. They can't live very comfortably. What this tax does, this tax allows for them to still basically afford to live. It's a living income that these people would have, should they lose their jobs for the basis of that technological innovation. At the point in which, like I said, the people that are going to be most affected by this are going to be significantly older than the average working age. So they're probably likely to be close to retiring age, which means that this income will only be temporary until they either are able to get back on their feet or until they are able to access proper income coming from either another job or government benefits of some kind. I don't know what it's like in other countries. For us, it would be Centrelink, until each person is able to access that income. But it also looks like allowing them to get those other jobs because of those education programs, which they would otherwise be unable to get. Because what happens when you lose a job, you no longer have that income. And especially important to those people who have that life established, they need that income to survive. Otherwise, they might not have a house to live in. They might not have food. Their family goes without certain things. And so that's incredibly important because at the point in which you lose a job, you no longer have those things. And so that's what this robot tax is designed to do. It's designed to support those people who would otherwise be losing their jobs and then losing those things that are incredibly important to them. So that's why I support this, because at the point in which you don't have that tax, these people are not getting that money, which means that they have no income, which means that they're likely to have a very bad time, so to speak. And so I think that's incredibly important to the population, especially those who would otherwise be less able to retrain themselves than their younger counterparts. And so that's I'm still trying to develop the reasoning why this is beneficial for people. But anyway, back to you. I'm hoping that you have some things to say. Like you do, so that's cool.
Okay. So I have a thing to say here. When the idea that has been existing, that there will be no more jobs for humans, or the idea that people will be unemployed and they'll suffer and everything. We always actually thought that our lives would be worse after robots, or maybe like, such systems actually took over. But um okay. So, but like when you see like throughout um the development that's happening, like every time an efficient machine has actually replaced humans, it has actually as I said, it has not actually replaced people, or maybe replaced people's productivity. It has actually complemented people's productivity and actually helped them to be in places where they are actually needed. Or like if you see, like, there in this debate, I think there were like two sides, maybe different kind of worlds existing. And so in your world, what you're doing is that you're supporting people but not actually creating a permanency to them, while my side actually pushes people to go to places where they are actually needed, or maybe to actually address the areas where the robots cannot actually be used. In fact, yes, in a way, if you see those person for a certain time, if you see like, hey, like they don't have their jobs, but then you're just making them like, you just what do you call it, you are just making them more not weaker, but like, you're being a support that actually does not give an absolute permanency to them, that actually does not ensure them or to be more productive in a way. So you are actually supporting them in a way that, in whichever way they are. So if it's just more like the idea that if in case you are funding a poor person, like if in case you are not teaching the person the skill but giving the person money every time, then you are not actually developing the productivity of that person. But if you see, um yeah, so I just think that for me, even still, that idea actually doesn't come so much like, properly, because as I said, it does not give permanency to them, and it's more like the idea of that funding those poor people but not giving them a skill, or it does not ensure anything. So that's why it's not required is my main idea. My idea is not that it should ensure permanency, but it's not required is my basic idea. And the next thing is that my okay, let me just okay. So as I said, like my another idea was that taxing. I'm just actually, I just don't have new points. I'm just going to just recalculate everything and then just make it clear. And in terms of taxing efficiency, as I said, taxing efficiency is counterproductive. And even though when you say like those companies are actually going to earn much higher than what they did in terms of human beings, the operating cost because of robot tax, because there were no like because of robot tax is actually going to create more operational cost, and that actually will compensate the earning or maybe any profit they'll be making, even if they make it, which is not even insured, as I said. Because yeah, so that was my another point. And okay, and the next thing was on how that industries that are actually struggling to improve productivity, and then if in case we are taxing those kind of um, robots, and then in a way we are actually discouraging innovations. In a way we are actually discouraging innovations, and then that should not be done, because if we want more productivity, like no taxes, and then like there's another idea. And also, as I said, it is like kind of opposite to how the tax system, why the tax system was invented, to actually create better um so better better lives, actually. Because as I said, there's more like, maybe now when they have like more operational cost, like they are going to decrease the quality of the product. They're going to actually charge much to people to actually compensate to the operational cost they have had. So it's just counterproductive. and and the next thing is that when you say like, some people who are not actually working on jobs now, like maybe because the taxation from them is not coming, let's employ robots. It's more like the idea that, you know it just, I mean, it's a continuing process. We actually always, human beings actually always thought that, hey, like if in case there's technology coming up, like we'll have unemployment and all. But in the last 100 years of employment on farm, in the like last 100 years, like employment on farms has gone from 30% of the workforce to 3% is the result of technological change. But if we were missing out on tax, we'd have, or maybe if we are like missing out on tax, or we'd have expected the amount of tax collected like to massively decrease over that time. But it's just that, as I said, those workforce who actually like lost their jobs there, they actually went to the other place, and it's just a continual process. Instead, we have seen the exact opposite, because now it has been benefiting. It has increased wealth throughout the economy. It has increased tax revenue. It's not that the tax system can be escaped, or it's not